Can you state your name?
My name is Michael Barney.
What year were you born?
I was born in 1966.
And what events were going on when you were growing up?
Well, starting when I was born, we ended up, we had the first man walk on the moon. The Vietnam War was coming to an end in the early 70s. We ended up having, gas shortages. I do remember that in the early 70s. I do remember, the Cold War was going on in the 70s into the 80s. I do remember the wall in Berlin, coming down. I do remember that. That was the big thing that was going on in the news and all over the world.
Do you think that people back then loved America and were patriotic towards their country?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially with the Cold War that was going on. It was, two superpowers, and it was basically the evil empire was us against them type of thing. And there seemed like there was an awful lot of camaraderie and as far as patriotism. I did feel that.
Do you feel like a lot of people went off to join the military more than they do now?
Yes, I do. I believe that back then, I think there was an overall sense of supporting your country. Now it seems a little bit fractured now. There's uncertainty out in the world, as there always is, but it doesn't seem as unified, let's say, as it did back in, say, like the 80s.
So do you think that military service was kind of just an American value?
Well, that depends. That depends on how you were brought up. If you were brought up, it depends on if you had military in your family. That's a big determining factor, whether you have those views that people in your family, if they're in law enforcement, or if they have military background, you sort of have a tendency to go that way. If you are more liberal, you're going to think the other way. You're going to be against the military. So I think it all depends. It all depends on how you're brought up and what you're exposed to from your parents, your relatives, and then your own opinions and views that you form when you're growing up. And what they teach you in school also can sometimes sway you.
So do you think that pride in the country has kind of declined?
To some extent. I think there's so much out there now, especially with social media and being able to access information. I think that younger people in school, that are still in school, are able to form their opinions on their own a lot earlier than, say, in my generation, because the way we got our information was either a newspaper or watching the nightly news. Now you can sit there and you get feeds on your cell phone or on your laptop, and it's instant, and you know what's going on. I think there's more information that's available for people to form their own opinions.
Do you think that my generation kind of feels entitled and we just feel like we're special and everything should be handed to us?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because the thing is, everything is instant. It's instant gratification, and as far as the entitlements,
do you feel like
it's a now generation.
Yeah.
Your generation is the now generation. Before, I think I had the last generation, I believe, where, again, I remember, dialing a rotary phone. Those days are gone. Everything's cell phone. Things changed an awful lot with the internet. I mean, take just the information. That's one thing that, totally changed.
Do you think kind of like the narcissism that's around today with like my generation resulted in like my generation not feeling like they have to sacrifice for their country or take pride in this country?
I don't know about narcissism because I think that's always been there. I don't necessarily think it was your generation is more narcissistic than the 80s was pretty narcissistic. But I don't know. I don't think your generation. I think more so entitlement as opposed to narcissism. I think definitely the entitlement.
So how do you think you can like counteract that as and bring back pride in the country? Do you think you can?
That's a tough question. Yes, I think you can. I mean, I'm optimistic to think that you can. I think unity, I mean, education, I think tolerance is a big one. There's more ethnicities, there's more people coming into this country that more than it ever has been, and everyone's got to get along. I mean, people may not want to hear that, but the population's growing everywhere, and you got to learn to get along, which that means that you have to understand other people. You have to put yourself in somebody else's situation, and it's definitely going to be a work in progress. That's for sure.